All right, let's get into it. We spend so much time talking about the magic of boiling sap, the steam, the smell. But the real story, the one that actually decides how good your syrup will taste, that happens way before the evaporator is even fired up. We're talking about collecting the sap. That's where quality is either saved or, well, lost for good.
Oh man, I think every single one of us has been there. This quote just hits you right in the gut, doesn't it? You can feel that sinking feeling. You start doing the math in your head, all those hours, all that walking, checking taps, and poof, it's all gone. It is a tough lesson for sure, but it's the most important one. Syrup quality is decided out there in the woods.
And yeah, this lays out all the pitfalls perfectly. Collecting too late, not cooling it down fast enough, using gear that's kind of dirty. These are the quiet mistakes that can ruin a batch before we've even thought about boiling. And that caption says it all. Quality is won or lost before the boil, period.
So what's actually happening here? Well, it's basically an invisible fight. See, sap is alive, and I don't mean that in some poetic way. I mean, it's alive with microbes. The second that sap leaves the tree, a clock starts ticking. All these little sugar-loving bacteria just wake up and get to work. And they only care about three things: time, temperature, and all that yummy sugar.
This is the one truth that everyone, and I mean everyone, learns the hard way. Once that spoilage process kicks off, there is no going back. You could have the fanciest, most expensive evaporator on the planet, but it can't fix off flavors that were created by sloppy handling 2 days ago. It all just comes down to discipline.
So that leads us right to our first pillar, time. Look, consistent, high-quality syrup really comes down to something most people just don't think enough about: a solid collection rhythm. It's not about having cool new gear. It's about managing that clock, day in and day out.
And this right here is a key strategy. Pulling your sap in the morning is almost always the winning move. You're grabbing that sap when it's at its coldest, right? You're keeping that cold chain going and buying yourself a buffer against the day warming up. Evening pulls, that's a gamble. If that sap's been sitting in a bucket warming up all afternoon, the bacteria have already been having a party. The rule is simple. Collect when the sap is cold, not just when it's convenient for you.
This little table pretty much takes all the guesswork out of it. If you're in a cold spell, temps are staying below 38 degrees Fahrenheit, you've probably got a 24, maybe 48-hour window. But a warm spell, anything over 40 degrees, daily pulls are absolutely non-negotiable. And remember, these are realistic limits, not just wishful thinking.
Okay, so you get the sap out of the woods. The next make or break point is our second pillar, temperature. You can have the most perfect collection rhythm in the world and still lose the whole batch if your storage isn't right. The entire goal is to keep that cold chain completely intact from the tree to the evaporator.
And this visual just lays out the hard limits. If it's below freezing, sure, you can get away with a few days. But once you creep into that 32 to 35 degree range, you're looking at maybe 3 days max. And get above 38 degrees, that window shrinks to just 24 hours. Honestly, 40 degrees might feel chilly to you, but for bacteria, that's like a party invitation.
I absolutely love this rule of thumb because it just clicks. It makes perfect sense, right? Both raw milk and fresh sap are super susceptible to bacteria. So if you wouldn't feel good about leaving a jug of raw milk sitting in your unheated garage during a spring thaw, then you definitely should not be storing your sap there either. All right, that brings us to the third and final pillar, cleanliness. And let's be clear, this is not about being paranoid and trying to create a sterile lab in your sugar shack. It's just about simple, repeatable habits that get rid of the food source for bacteria without making you go crazy. This simple little routine is your best defense. Step 1, rinse. Get that sticky sugar film off. That's what the bacteria eat. Step 2, drain everything completely. Don't leave little puddles behind for them to multiply in. And step 3, this is the one people forget. Air dry. Let it get bone dry. A totally dry surface is a terrible place for bacteria to live, making it one of the easiest and most effective things you can do. And this just shows you how it all ties together. Proper timing, pulling your sap daily, strict temperature control, keeping it under 35 degrees, and consistent cleanliness. Discipline in these 3 areas, that's what separates an amazing batch of syrup from one that's just meh. It directly decides your final flavor grade.
Okay, so you've been disciplined. You followed the 3 pillars. Now comes the moment of truth. This is where you have to stop looking at the rulebook and start trusting your own eyes and your own nose. Knowing when to boil and when to just dump it out, that's a skill that separates the pros from the people who get frustrated and quit.
Just look at this comparison. It could not be clearer. Good sap looks like pure fresh water. Bad sap, well, it tells a story. It might be cloudy, kind of milky, sometimes even ropey and slimy. And here's the key takeaway. That cloudiness often shows up before you can smell anything funky. So your eyes are your first and best line of defense.
So you find yourself in this moment. The sap's a little bit cloudy, maybe it sat just a little too long, it's right on the edge. What do? Do you risk hours of your time and all that fuel on something that might turn out terrible? Or do you just cut your losses right now?
This is it. This is the one question that cuts through all the wishing and hoping. You have to be honest with yourself. If you have even a tiny feeling that you are going to regret boiling this stuff into syrup, don't argue with your gut. Just dump it. Protecting the quality of your final product sometimes means walking away from a bit of volume.
I think this piece of old-timer wisdom just sums it all up perfectly. You don't get to negotiate with sap. It doesn't care how tired you are. It doesn't care how much you were hoping that last run would be a big one. You either respect its natural limits, or you're going to pay the price in your finished syrup.
And that's really what this all boils down to, isn't it? Every single one of those little decisions, to go collect the sap on time, to keep it cold, to take 30 seconds to rinse a bucket, that isn't a chore. That is an active choice you are making about what your final syrup is going to taste like. Discipline isn't a burden. It's the most important ingredient you have.